our Q2 sprint. So, welcome everyone. Thank you so much for coming. This is going to be kind of an overview of just the process that I use and the one that we've worked through numerous times over the last year or two. I'll share the PDF in the group of the process that I use when I go through quarterly sprints and setting quarterly targets. And it really has made a difference, especially not just in my personal life, but in my business life, being able to sit down and get some clarity around what I'm trying to create this quarter, and also taking a look back and reviewing what my results were from last quarter, right? It's very hard to make an adjustment or to pivot when we haven't taken an honest look at how we performed in the prior quarter and where we're at today and where we want to be in the future. So really that's what I use these quarterly sessions for. And I've been doing it now for several years, and it really helps me stay on point and stay on target. So I'm going to dive into it. I'm just going to use the PowerPoint today. I'm going to pop the camera off here in a moment so it's not distractive. And I'm going to run through the PowerPoint, talk about the process, and talk about some of the things that you really need to be present to and aware of as I walk through these things. Let me pop the video off for you. So announcements, a couple things coming up for Bank Card Life for those of you. We're going to be doing some new interviews. I've got a couple people lined up already. Get in the Facebook group if you haven't gotten in the Facebook group. And we're going to have an announcement probably May 1st. I didn't get it done April 1st, but some great benefits for you guys that I think you'll really get a lot of use out of, and some tools that we'll be bringing to you. I finished my green sheet Street Smarts column for the last year, so I was happy to get that wrapped up and completed. But there's a lot of good content in what I wrote over the last year that I want to put together some courses and trainings, and then also do some product reviews. So I'll have this post up. I'll have the PDF up on the goal setting, target setting process. We have replays of these posted back in the member group as well. If you ever want to go through these, we've got the big annual one that I did this year that was a couple hours. And then we have these quarterlies that we work through. And then I want to talk about my intention for you, talk about some of the problems or challenges that we all face in our lives as human beings. So get in the Facebook group, look in the resource area. There's always information back there that you can find useful. Write some notes down here. We're not going to go through in depth of the entire process. I'm not going to do that with you today and keep you on here for 2 or 3 hours, but have a pen and paper ready and just jot down some notes about anything that comes to mind that you might want to revisit later. We're here on the first of the month of a new quarter. It's a new opportunity. The economy is opening up, businesses are opening up. I don't know about you. You've probably seen your merchant volumes are increasing. I hope you're experiencing that. But for some of the partners I work with, some of the investments that I'm involved in, some of the vendors that I work with, I've got good visibility across the entire United States. And I can tell you that the volumes have increased dramatically across merchant processing portfolios, and then some of my consumer finance and lending opportunities that I have. I think travel is going to kick back in. I know I've got already 3 or 4 trips scheduled. I think you're going to see some more trade shows happening here towards the end of the year. So just things are slowly getting back into a place where I think people are more comfortable spending money, moving around and traveling. And certainly that's good for us in the merchant processing business. So I'll have these PDFs once again up there for you. And I'm just going to review this process. It's really up to you to do the work and to show up and do the work in your life so you can really realize the benefits of that hard work, and also becoming the person that you want to become for yourself. And most importantly, not just yourself, but for your family, your loved ones, and for that why, right? And I talk about that why and the reason behind the why, why we do the things that we do. and when we do those things. So it's really important that you get present to that and are really getting some clarity here today about what you're going to create here this next quarter, and maybe come up with some strategy, or you're going to enhance or really uh, really piggyback on the strategies you set at the beginning of the year, but really focus in on that and see if you need to make some adjustments, see if there's anything else that you should be doing differently to really get the results that you want to get. And let me see if I can pull up my notes here. Up. Thanks, Roger. Great for having you on. I saw a little Q&A chat there, so glad to have you. So we want clarity. We want to adjust our strategy if we need to. And behind the strategy are the actions that we want to take or the tactics that we want to take, right? So take some time, set aside an hour or two, get your pen and pad out, your notebook, your tablet, whatever works for you, and really brainstorm and take a look back of where you have come from in this first quarter and where you want to go in this second quarter, and make those adjustments as necessary. So the problem we all face, and it's without exception, right? Usually I dig into several problems, and I'm just going to talk about one problem today. The real problem is there's a gap, right? There's a gap between the place that we are today and the reality that we're living in today and the desired reality of where we want to be, right? And we have these gaps, and we talk a lot about the four dimensions, right? Body, being, balance, and business. And we have these gaps in all four of those dimensions of our lives. And some of us have a tiny gap in one area. You know, maybe our body's in good health, we're working out, we're fitness, we're eating right, we're taking care of ourselves, we're getting enough sleep, we're hydrating, we're meditating, we've got a spiritual connection. Maybe that gap isn't so big in that area. And then we might have another area where we have a huge gap, right? And all of our gaps are a little bit different. We all experience different things, and we're all at different places in our journey in life. But you can't deny that there's probably a little bit of a gap in some of these areas, a big gap in others, and maybe a huge gap in some of them. So, what you've got to identify and be honest about and have self integrity around is, what are those glaring gaps that you need to focus on this quarter, right? And what I do is I look at each quarter, and when I go back and review that quarter, I kind of decide what area I really want to focus on and where do I really need to put a lot of my energy in. I want to work on all those areas, but there might be a specific area where maybe I've dropped the ball a little bit, or I want to just see a great enhancement in, right? So we think, begins with the mind, right? And I think Emerson said the ancestor to every action is a thought, right? And being in sales and being business owners, we know how important our mindset is. We know how important it is to think the right way, because when we don't think the right way, what is your thoughts? What do your thoughts have an impact on? Well, they have an impact on how you feel, right? And a lot of times how you feel is how you act. So, what we can do is get trapped in this loop, this never ending loop of thinking the same way, feeling the same way, and acting the same way, right? And oftentimes we don't even know it's occurring. It's a tape that's continually repeating itself. It's a drama that we're reliving over and over. It's a story we're telling ourselves, a soap opera where we're the main actor, and we continue to repeat and repeat and repeat. And until you're ready to look at that in an honest way, or until you get enough pain in your life, right? Because pain oftentimes is the predecessor to action, that we won't look at it, and we start to believe and we start to justify what we are and what we've become, and we come up with reasons why it's okay just to show up like this, or it's okay to be like that, or it's not my fault, it's their fault, it's blah 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 blah, it's COVID, it's a virus, it's the economy, it's reason after reason after reason. So I think it's critical when you're sitting down in these quarters is to realize how important it is to get your mindset right, because the way we think determines what we do, and what we do determines what we become, right? So if you're thinking the same thoughts over and over and you're doing the same things over and over, you're going to become the same thing. You're going to get the same outcome and the same results. So what we want to try to do is identify those areas, and some of them are very, very painful, that we need to really look into in an honest way and say, you know what, I need to change my thinking around this. I need to change the actions that I'm taking because I'm not getting the result that I want. And oftentimes, some of the hardest places where we have to do this is around the balance area, right? Relationships. You know, it's a tough thing when you're dealing in relationships because individuals are so different. There's so much diversity around how people either grew up, how they were raised, what their thinking is, what they think is possible for themselves. It's just very difficult when you have the human condition involved, and especially between two different people, and sometimes even within families, it can be very, very difficult. So, body, being, balance, and business are the four categories, the four domains that I like to focus on when I'm working up these 90-day plans, these blueprints for myself. And you can add other categories. It could be 8 categories for you or 10. You know, I used to do a lot more. I've kind of condensed it down to these four. But just realizing that the problem is the bridge, right, between the gap of where you are and the desired outcome. That's your challenge, right? Is closing that gap. So when we talk about this framework that I came up with. Nothing's unique here. This is all just borrowed things from how I've lived my life and what I've read and in my past. And you may have different labels for these words, but when I talk about these areas, I'm talking about purpose, possibility, planning, power, production, and profit, right? And it all links to purpose and possibility for me, right? We have to have this purpose and possibility connected to the vision of what you want to become, because that's really the deeper meaning, the intrinsic the intrinsic motivator or desire within inside of ourselves to become something, to have a purpose typically that is greater than ourselves. You know, if life was all about just making a bunch of money and having a nice fancy car or a house and a big bank account, and you'd be happy, you know, all the rich people in the world would be pretty happy, but you know, they still deal with the same challenges that all of us do, and you still see people with a lot of assets and a lot of money that are committing suicide or empty or not really fulfilled in any way. And it's the same on the other spectrum, right? There's a lot of people that have very little, that have a limited belief of what's possible for them, and feel like they have to be in a place of poverty or lack or limitation in order to feel like uh, they're getting what they deserve in life. So you have to come up with your own way to connect your purpose and possibility. And I've done a lot of work on this. We have a lot of pre-recorded stuff that I've talked about how important that is, of you finding that why, right? The big why in your life. And for most of it, it's pretty simple. A lot of times it's the same things. It's our partners, our husbands, our wives, our children, our family members, you know, the most important people in our lives, the people that we want to make an impact for. And as a man, for me, it's who I want to show up as, who I want to model, you know, for my children and my grandchildren that I have 3 now. You know, how do I want to show up and lead those people and teach them through my actions, not through just my words, how you should also model and become as you grow older. So purpose and possibility is critical. Then once we have that locked down, and we have this idea, you know, of what our purpose is and what's possible for us, and this vision, you know, that we want to create, then we have to get into, you know, putting some concrete ideas and plans and strategy behind it, right? And so we want to start to look at this planning, which is what we're doing right now for this next quarter, but also I can have the great plan, I can have this great strategy, but I have to have the power and the systems and the processes in order to carry these things out, right? And there's a lot of people in this world that have grandiose ideas and have great plans and strategies. And, I used to be a lot like this. I'd start something and man, I'd take off really fast, but I never completed it, right? So we have to have the plan, but we've got to marry that up with the energy and the power and the focus and the systems to really make that a reality. And that's part of what we talk about when I discuss these daily routines and daily rituals across consistently accessing power across your body, being balance and business, right? And the word consistent is critical because that's how you build a long-term foundation, and that's how you build long-term success in all these areas. It's by consistent effort. You build a portfolio in the merchant processing business by consistently putting on merchants. You can't just do two or three, right? We need a lot of merchants because we don't make as much money on two or three merchants. We need hundreds and hundreds and thousands till we reach the number that we want to reach. And that takes consistent effort in order to reach those targets. And it's the same across your body. If I go out and I work out consistently, I'm going to get the result that I want. If I'm sporadically working out, I'm going to pull some muscles, I'm going to hurt my back, and I'm not going to get the results that I want, right? So consistency is critical in every area of your life, married up with this idea of accessing power. And power for you might be something different for me, but for me, it's the energy that I need, the motivation, the mental focus, the all the things, the attitude, my mindset, all the things I have to be on top of in order to achieve the things that I want to achieve and create the things that I want to create. And once we get to that point, we talk about production, right? And that's the day in, day out, blocking and tackling of running a business, of living our lives. And that's the work, right? That is the work. And, it's not work to me if you love what you're doing, right? So it doesn't really equate to a negative connotation for me. It's a positive connotation because when I think of work, I think about creation, right? And I like to be a creator. I like to come up with ideas and things and thoughts and strategies and business things that are exciting to me, that get me up each and every single day. And I've been, in this business now for 25 years, and I still wake up every day, I would say 99% of the time, excited about what lies ahead of me and what I have working and what I'm doing and what I'm planning on creating. And I hope it's the same way for you as well. And then once we start to do that work and we produce, we get a result, right? We get an outcome based upon the actions we take. And prior to the action was the thoughts that we are having. We have an outcome. And at that point, we want to measure that outcome and see if it's the outcome that we were shooting for, right? And if it's not the outcome we wanted, so what? What do we learn from it? What do we have to adjust? What do we have to change in order to get the outcome that we want? You can swing 100 times and you might get 50 hits, but if you never take a swing, you're never going to get a hit. So we've got to continually get out there and take those actions that we know we need to take in order to show up and become the person we want to become. And part of that is this measurement, this review, and this strategic thinking that we need to put in around these four dimensions of our life: our body, that's our nutrition, our exercise, our being, our spiritual connectedness, whatever that means for you, our balance, our relationships, in our business. And a lot of us are really focusing our self-worth around the success of our business. And really, that those two things do not really relate to me. Of course, it's great to be successful in business. It means that I've done some things right, but it also does not mean that I'm any more valuable or less valuable than somebody that wasn't success in business. When you have the body, the being in balance and alignment, I promise you, your business is going to be successful. You can't avoid it. So if you're living living on purpose and vision, you'll find a way to make money. And if you've got those other three areas locked down, your business will thrive. It's when you focus so much on the business and you give up the other things in life that affect in a negative way your body being in balance. That's where you really have the bad side effects of just focusing too much on making money and running the business. And certainly there's seasons of our business and seasons of our lives where we have to spend that kind of time. But it's really, really important that you lock down the body being balance and business. So let's talk about this process. This is all located in the PDF. And right now, I do not see my capability to send you a PDF. So I'm going to post this in the group. And let's just go through the PDF and let's look at it. And I'm hoping you can see, everybody can see my screen because I'm sharing it. So let's make sure. Let me reshare. So hopefully you guys can see here. All right. So this is really the brief process I walk through, and I'm going to get you guys out of here pretty quickly today, but I just want to cover this because I think it's really important. And I usually will print this out. I'll make notes on it. I'll write on it. Uh, it's really important, like I said, to go back and assess and review. There's an assessment you can take if you want to go to bankcardlife.com/assessment, which is 15 to 20 questions, just some general questions about your results that you had before, and you can kind of take a look at where you might line up for yourself. But really, we want to look at this last quarter. And when we do the year end, we want to look at the last year, right? So the yearly is a little bit longer because we're taking a look at everything from the prior year and working it up for the next year. So, the first question, obvious question, is did I hit the targets that I set this last quarter, right? Did you show up the way you wanted across body, being, balance, and business? What lessons did you learn? What areas do you need to course correct in? Did you hit your weekly reviews if you were doing a weekly review? Did you set your weekly intentions? What did your morning routine look like? Did you do the things you needed to do, and are you still on track for what you want to create this year? And the one I always like to ask myself is, am I becoming the person I want to become, right? Are you really crafting, building, and developing the person that you want to be? Are you happy with who you are? So once I look through there, I have to kind of do a little bit of a gut check, right? Because I don't know if this ever happens to you, but sometimes I justify my actions for not producing. Sometimes I lie to myself about things and say, it's all right you missed that because of this, or it's okay you didn't do that. And I have to really kind of take a little bit of a gut check here, and I have to get rigorously honest with myself. And this is why I have accountability partners. I have groups, mastermind groups that I belong with and work in that, people can help keep me accountable for the actions I'm taking and the person I'm becoming. So I need to do a little bit of a gut check here, and I need to look at these notes from this review and say, am I being honest, or am I lying to myself in one area? Do I have real clarity where I'm at? Do I really see myself where I'm at across my body? Am I saying I'm working out and eating healthy, but at 9 o'clock every night I'm having a donut or two or a bowl of ice cream or whatever it is that I'm doing, right? Uh, am I being honest with this review and this assessment? Do I have some clarity? Is there a story that I'm believing about what is possible that I need to kill? And the stories are the most detrimental things that we start to believe in, and we start to let control ourselves and our actions. So is there a story I'm telling myself about what's possible for me that needs to be killed that isn't true, that's a fake, that's a fraud, that's not real? it doesn't matter if a story is real or not. If we believe it, we're going to get the same effects from that story. So if I've got a negative belief that I'm believing to be true for me, I'm going to still get the same negative side effects. So I've got to get a little bit deeper on those and look at those stories and say, hey, this is not true. This is just a false tape that I've been playing over and over again. And the reality is, the facts are that I'm not the person that I'm telling myself I am. I do have some worth, and I do have the capacity to be successful at this. And I do have X, Y, and Z so I can get these results. So you just sit with it, you be with it, you internalize it, and you take these lessons for what they are and what's being offered to you. A lot of times I'll meditate before, I'll pray before, I'll journal when I go through this, and really just be listening for the messages that'll come. And if you do this enough over enough periods of time, you will start to be able to reach a place where you can get some real honesty with yourself and look at yourself even when you know you're lying to yourself, and realize I'm just accepting myself for who, I'm the observer, right? That's who I am. That's how I showed up. It's not really how I need to be today. I can change this part of myself, right? So you can get to a place where hopefully you can get really honest with yourselves. So once you've done that, it's time to look at what's new. What am I going to create that's new? So I've got this blank canvas sitting in front of me. What am I going to create this quarter? And I typically will write 5 or 10 things down in every area. What do I want to achieve across body? And a lot of things, for me, I'm a little older now. Is a lot of maintenance on the body. Years ago, it used to be the marathons or climbing Kilimanjaro or endurance bicycling ride. I like to do uh, goals for the quarter, events that I want to achieve that really drive me to show up physically, nutritionally, and take care of myself. And I do the same across the other areas. So where across balance, do I want to take my wife or family on a certain trip? Do I want to go and experience this with my family on being? Do I want to take a workshop? Do I want to do a Bible study? Do I want to complete a certification? Whatever it is for you, you drive and have ideas about the quarter, and maybe you have a yearly goal of doing something, and each quarter is building up to you hitting that yearly target, whatever it is for you. So you sit down and brainstorm these new targets, write 5 or 10 items down. I circle the top three, I sit with it, and then I circle the top one, right? Here's the one thing I want to do in body, being, balance, and business. And when we talk about business, we're really talking about, for me, these last few years have really been a lot of systems and processes. And I've realized as a business grows, as my companies got bigger and bigger, uh, I couldn't be the center of everything. I had to be able to have other people, teammates, in other areas of responsibility that I could bring people in. And you have to give up a certain amount of control. But I also realized I really lacked in the areas of systems and processes. And when I could systemize something like maybe the sales process, right? Or I could systemize lead generation, or I could systemize boarding and deployment. If I could just systemize those things and get them down to a place where I could easily hand them off to another person, then my business could grow and I could scale. And that's what I've been really focusing on a lot, and still am this year. I'm still, I'm putting together some pretty big systems and marketing campaigns that, you know, if the marketing works, we have to be able to fulfill, right? So if my goal is to build out these marketing campaigns and drive sales on the front end, I have to be able to fulfill, deliver, and support on the back end. So a lot of what I've been doing is looking at the things that I'm working on and doing and making sure I have all those areas covered, and that I can create these systems. And then all I have to do to scale and grow is beef up the marketing on the front end, because I know I'm going to get more conversions. And then if I've got the back end scalable, it won't take more than 1 or 2 people if I need to add them per X of business from the front end. So that's really what I've been working on, a lot of systems and really getting my business to a place where I can step out of it if I have to, and just focusing on the most important things for me. So, in this last month, I've hired probably 4 new employees just in the last month, and I've got 2 or 3 more I'm going to hire. And really feel like for us, this next year is going to be a great opportunity to really, really grow. And I think it's going to be a great opportunity to get a lot of new merchants from our competitors. For those of you doing a lot of payment business right now, it's going to be a great time to get out there and take some business. And there's going to be a lot of people that sit on their butts and aren't out there working or aren't aggressive enough, and they're going to get their accounts taken by somebody that is. So I think we're in a great opportunity here to really, really grow the business. So you course correct, you brainstorm, you course correct if needed, you set up your new targets, you got your targets. Are they in alignment with your yearly targets and your goals? And do they get you excited, right? You need to be fired up and excited about what you're creating, because if you're not excited about it, you're not going to be able to generate the energy you need to pull this thing off, right? So you've got to be excited about it. So you've got the energy to pull this off and achieve what you want to achieve. And then I'll put these down on paper, and then I might look at some of the obstacles that could hold me back from achieving what I want to achieve. And if those obstacles occur, what's my solution or strategy to overcome those obstacles? So I have a target. What could hold me back? What could be an obstacle? And if that obstacle does occur, how am I going to solve that problem, right? So I'm ready to go at this point. I've got my targets, and I know if these obstacles raise their head, I'm ready to go. I'm ready to overcome them, and I'm ready to achieve what I want to achieve. So at this point, it's more of a recommitment of saying, you know what, these targets are really what I want, and you can ask yourself that question several times. Is this really what I want? Is this really, 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 really what I want? Is this what I want to spend the next 3 months of my life trying to achieve? So many times we just throw things down on paper and we say we want this thing, but we really, really don't want it, right? We like the idea of achieving it, but we're really not willing to do what it takes to achieve it. A lot of people want to be a concert pianist, but a lot of people don't want to practice 12 hours a day for 10 years. And if you read the book, I can't remember the name of it, I think it's called Mastery, but the author says it takes an average of 10,000 hours to reach mastery on any subject or topic. So, if you're committed to mastery, then you have to be committed to putting the time in, and you have to look at these targets over this next 90 days and say, gosh, I want to write 50 merchant accounts a month, but am I willing to do what it takes to do 50 merchant accounts a month? Am I willing to spend the money, commit the capital, close the deals, hire the people? And if the answer is yes, then you're off to the races. You go for it, right? So that's something you have to decide. But when I get to step 4, I'm internalizing the cost of these targets and looking at, man, what's the cost if I don't hit these targets? What's the cost to my why? And if my why is my family, my children, those people most important to me, what's the cost to my family, my children, my business, my teammates, my investors, my uh, all the people that count on me? What's the cost if I don't hit these targets? What's the cost to my health? What's the cost of my spiritual connectedness and my relationship with God if I don't hit these targets across being? What are the financial consequences if I don't hit this business target? How am I going to feel about myself at the end of 90 days if I don't hit these 90-day targets? And really get emotional about it, get present to it, and really internalize those costs. And this drives you into a place of real commitment, right? Real commitment where you see the targets, you've scraped out all the stories, you're looking at it with a vision, an eye of integrity, and saying, I am going to commit to these targets, and I'm going to take a stand for myself, my family, and the people that are most important for me. And then I'm ready to go to work, right? So that's where you put it in your 90-day planner. That's where you start to write it down. That's where you have made that internal commitment, and you're ready to show up and become the person that you say that you want to become. So that's the process that I work through. And by the time I get done, we'll have my targets all set. I'll have the obstacles set. I'll have the strategy set on how I'm going to deal with those obstacles. And I'm going to know the cost to myself personally and the cost to the most important people in my life if I don't achieve these targets. And I'm at a place typically where I'm very, very committed at that time. And I've done this work with other men in groups. I've done it with big groups, smaller groups. It really is what you individually put into it, and what you're how deep you're really willing to go when you're looking at these things. So once I'm at that point, it's time to implement and put these things in my system. So whatever your system is, your daily routines, your weekly review, your weekly planning, you now have these targets, and I'm going to put these targets up where I'm looking at them every single day. And what I do every morning is I open up. I've got an app that I run them on. Any of you that have done the Wake Up Warrior Challenge that I posted, they have an app in there. I buy that software, and that's the software that I use to run my life. And I run my daily routines from there, my weekly reviews from there, my daily body being balanced, all the things I'm doing, everything is documented in this application. And we have something called the Bank Card Life Planner that you can use as well. That's a free download in your back office. So at this point, we have planned, we have our targets, they're in our system, and we're ready to approach this second quarter. And I would just ask you, the goals and targets that you set, who would you need to become to hit those targets, right? And is the person that you need to become, who do you need to become? And then the person, what would your life look like if you were that person, right? The person that achieves these things, especially over these 12 months, what does your life look like? What are you doing? What do your habits look like? What time are you getting up in the morning? What are you doing during the day? What are you doing at night? What does your life look like that lives this way, that achieves these type of targets and makes this type of commitment? How do you show up in the world? And it's important to be able to visualize that, because just intellectually grasping it is no big deal, but you've got to really feel it and see it. And that's part of what hopefully you're doing daily when you're getting present, doing your daily routine. Either you're visualizing, you're journaling, you're writing about it, or you're reading about people that have done things that you want to do or become the way that you want to be. And that really keeps it present and engaged in your mind. And that's what's critical, because when we start to stray off, that's where the mind follows first, the mind goes first, then the actions go. And then before you know it, you're completely out of your routine, you're completely out of whack, and you've got to start all over again. So I would encourage you to stay on the path regardless of how you feel, and just take the actions that you know you need to take. The feelings will always follow. So follow us on Instagram. We'll have more postings here throughout the quarter. I just want to thank you for attending. I apologize for the technical difficulty. I got a new MacBook, and some of the software wasn't installed yet for me to share my tablet. I'll have it going here on our next trainings that we do. Join me next Wednesday. We talked this Wednesday about the sales process, and we're talking about attraction, qualifying, converting, and keeping. And we covered attraction this week. And next week, I'm going to talk about qualifying and making sure you're doing business with the type of merchants that you want to do business with. So thank you for attending. I hope you do this work. I hope you come up with these targets for yourself. It's critically important for you. And I want you to just set that side aside, 1 to 2 hours, set up your targets and keep them in front of you each and every day. And I know that you're going to achieve them. I know you're going to be wildly successful. And I think this year is going to be one of our best years ever. I just really feel like, in the economic data that I'm reviewing, the things that I'm seeing, the people that I'm talking to, there is so much pent up capital, so much pent up demand. So many businesses, I think, are just eager to get things going. I think the attitudes are better, the mental attitudes are better. People are loosening up. There's not so much fear being sent to us and dealt every single day in society. I just think it's going to be a really good year. So I think you need to really focus and take advantage and leverage this time, because we know it's going to go down again at some point, right? I mean, that's the economic cycle. So when you have a cycle where you're on the upswing, you need to leverage it and take advantage of it as much as possible. And then you'll be prepared if there's a downturn. And I just think it's just a great opportunity right now. So I hope you take advantage of it. Do your targets. I will talk to you soon. We'll get this replay posted in the member area. Thank you.